Hello everyone, and today I thought I'd try my hand at making a Fire Emblem tier list, because most of the time tier lists tier lists are made for things like LTCs and like playing as best as you possibly can, and I don't really think a lot of people play that way. I think more people play Iron Mans, so I'm going to try to make a tier list for Shadow Dragon in the context of an Iron Man, because Iron Man, Shadow Dragon is the easiest game to Iron Man because you get replacement units if your units die, and another reason I'll get into later when I actually do the tier list. And yeah, I think it'd be an interesting way to analyze units, because in an Iron Man, some units that rank low might rank higher, and some units that rank high might rank lower. So what am I going to analyze them on? Well, first there's the usual, availability, because Abel's obviously available for the whole game, and you can use them a lot, which is better than, like, Aaron, who does come promoted, but, like, you get him a couple chapters, like, in the late game. So there's that, and then I'm gonna rank them based off immediate use, because in Iron Man, right, in an Iron Man someone might die, and in some games, like, let's say in Fire Emblem 6, Rutger dies. You can't just deploy, Ogier to replace him, because Ogier sucks, so, right, I'm grading units based off if they're on the bench for a while, and someone dies and I need to deploy them, what can they do as soon as I deploy them? So there's that. So weapon ranks goes into that. And then of course there's obviously, normal base use, stats and whatnot. Alright, so with that, immediate utility. So let's start with Abel. Oh, and by the way, I'm not grading Norn and Frey because they are easy mode exclusive, and I assume if you're doing an Iron Man, you're doing it for the challenge of it and not doing it on normal mode. And I'm gonna assume that you're playing every chapter, you can warp skip some chapters. I did in my Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon Iron Man that I did on this channel, but, like, I'm just gonna grade every character based on what they do in a chapter and assume you don't warp skip it. So immediate utility, he starts out with a good speed tier, he won't get doubled by anything early on, I think about 7 speed, which is very important compared to Kane's, like, 6, which I'll get into in a second. And he starts out with the D-Lances, which you can get up through the, prologue, the first 3 chapters if you really want to, because Gazak, you'll be throwing javelins at him, assuming you're not doing the meme where you're raising Gordon to level 20. So you'll be able to do that fairly easily, and maybe get him to C by the time you get the Rider's Bane, and he's, pretty good growths and all that. Immediate utility, I won't say 100% deploy them, because if you don't train them, they can kind of get not as good by the time you get some other units that you might want to deploy, so there's that. So, and then there's Kane. I'm going to say he's bad. He starts out with... Now, hear me out on this. He starts out with D-Swords, which is fine, but he starts out with the 6 speed, right? And by Chapter 3, if he does not level up speed, he gets doubled and one-routed by the Brigands, which is not fun for him. And he can't get his weapon rank up through Javelins, because he starts... I'm pretty sure he's the only Cavalier that starts in E-Lances. He does have good growths, but, like, in an Iron Man, right? Let's say you get him one level in the first 2 chapters. 1 level in the first 2 chapters, that's fair since you get a lot of units in the first 2 chapters, and you can't... It'll be hard to specifically give Kane levels, because you probably want to give Caeda levels, and you probably want to give Marth levels, so he doesn't die. Marth is in the top tier, by the way, since you have to deploy him, and pretty much if Marth dies, the Iron Man is over, so he's just the most important unit by default. So I'm gonna say Kane is pretty bad. Like, his growths are fine, but, like, good luck trying to get his Lance rank up to a point where he's usable. And if he doesn't level speed, good luck, kid. Because there are other units you want to give EXP to, like Marth, so he doesn't die. Caeda, so she can become a bit bulkier, lives a bit more hits, get some speed, some strength maybe, so her Wing Spear can go off even harder. And there's just really not a lot of room for Kane, in my opinion. And by the way, this tier list isn't objective. Like, I'm going to put Caesar in a low tier, but I used Caesar in my Iron Man, I'm not going to come to your house and break your kneecaps if you don't deploy a unit that's in the 100% deploy them tier. This is just, like, how I think, how good they are. This obviously isn't how you have to play. Sometimes it's more fun to have an Iron Man where you're having a good time, having fun, because, in my Fire Emblem 6 Iron Man, I gave Boris all the EXP, and it was pretty funny, but if I was grading him like this, he'd be in memes tier. Alright, and then Jagen. 100% deploy them while they're alive. They have B Lances, okay, so that's the Silver Lance, that's the Rider's Bane. He can reclass into a Draco Knight, so that's free 10 movement. Free 10 movement. Like, his growths are bad, but, like, because of how effective weapons work in this game, that doesn't really matter. So that's just a no-brainer. While Jagen is alive, you should deploy him. He does have low luck, okay? So in an Iron Man, that actually matters, because you don't just reset when they get crit. So that can become a thing, like in the first 3 chapters. He faces like a 3% crit against the pirates. So if Jagen dies in the first 3 chapters, just restart your Iron Man, honestly. Because that's a real bummer. Yeah, so that's pretty much it with Jagen. There is an inherent risk to using him compared to some other units. For Gordon, I'm going to put Niche. Now, here's the thing. In the first 3 chapters, pirates have a lot of HP, so you can't just, you know, it's not like Fire Emblem 7-0, Marcus, walk up, kill him. They have a lot of HP and they don't get doubled, except by Caeda. And Caeda's very weak and can't take more than 1 without dying. So you need to deal chip damage, compared to another game where you might be Iron Manning, where you really don't need chip damage, everyone just one-rounds everyone else. But in this game, it's very, very important to deal chip damage, and Gordon is the only one that can do it reliably. These two can use the Javelin, but that's not accurate. This dude can use the Steel Bow, because weapon triangle disadvantage, and Javelins are inherently less accurate than bows. So you're really going to want to use Gordon. You are really, really, really going to want to use Gordon in the first 3 chapters, and that's why he's in the niche tier. Because he does have a niche for the first 3 chapters, compared to, like, I don't know, Ymir, who would never have a niche, because you get him in, like, the endgame, and, like, why bother deploying him? So there's that. So if he wasn't in the first 3 chapters, he'd probably be in meme tier, but he is, before the rest of your units take off with the Rider's Bane and other effective weapons. And then in bad, I'm going to put Doga. Because, okay, so Kane starts getting doubled in Chapter 3 if he doesn't get a speed level up. This dude gets doubled in Chapter 2, and he gets one-rounded, and that is a unit with a lot of choke points, where the pirates can just walk over the water, you know, snipe the units that you're trying to block, you know, like that bridge from the top. He can't block that. He can in FU1, but not in this game. And it's just very, very bad. He's very bad. You can reclass him to a hunter or something to make use of his good speed growth later on, but that's Chapter 4, and all I'm saying is good luck getting him that far, because he will die in Chapter 2 if he faces one enemy. So all I'm saying is good luck getting him that far. In an Iron Man, at least. And then, of course, 100% deploy them, and probably the best unit here, except for 2 others, is Caeda. You already know. 9 movement, unrestricted by mountains or forests. Effective against 2 classes with her preferred weapon that you can get more of in Forge. She pretty much just one-shots everything once you forge the Wing Spear. And she can fly around, so she's not really in a threat range. You know, if a hunter or horseman is approaching, she can just fly away like a little birdie. So she's pretty much the best unit in the game. She supports Marth, so that's fun if you want to give her more evasion. And that's pretty much it. You already know Caeda's good. I don't need to tell you about it. Please try to keep her alive. Good if another unit dies. Here's the thing about Riz. He starts with E staves, but once you're done with the prologue, you know, the first 3 chapters before you unlock battle preps, he's probably gonna have like D.5 staves, or like at least D. At least a D, right? So like if Lena dies, you know, because you need to heal people in the prologue unless you just end turn on the forts. But that's gonna take a while. So if like Lena dies, Riz is probably reasonably close to D, so you can probably get him up to C if you really need to. So if like Lena dies, Boa dies or something, Riz is always there with his kinda D rank by the end of the prologue. And then in niche utility, I'm gonna put Ogma, because I like Gordon. He's good for the first 3 chapters where the pirates aren't Cavaliers and you can't start spamming effective weapons yet. But then he kind of falls off a cliff, you know, he even doubles some of them. Like, you need him. You pretty much need him. You pretty much need this dude to kill Hyman and the second pirate boss. I forgot his name. You pretty much need him because he's the only guy that doesn't get doubled. But after that, a lot of enemies have lances. He doesn't double them anymore. He doesn't double anything, pretty much. He only has like a 30 or 35% speed growth, so he loses that utility. His hero promotion does give him some, but I really don't think you should be deploying him if you can. If you have the option not to. And then immediate utility, you already know Barst. DXs is fine. You can probably get him to C in a reasonable amount of time. He has really good growths. Highest bases. I think he has some of the highest personal bases in the game. You know, decent growths for Shadow Dragon. You know, you can reclass him into a hero when he promotes. Actually, let me just check his growths real real quick because I do want to double check. So I'm gonna check that right now. And let's see. 80 HP. He starts out with 24, which I think is like one of the highest personal HPs in the game because he's unpromoted. 40 strength, that's good. 30 speed, that could be better, but he starts off with 9 speed, so he's not going to be doubled by anything right away, like 15 defense, whatever. But he does have an 80% HP growth, so he will be tanky a bit regardless of that defense growth. So yeah, good growths. So yeah, that's good, that's good. He's pretty good to train up, and then, you know, even regardless of that 30 speed growth, because you're probably going to get him to promotion, because it's unlikely anything in the first couple of 10 chapters is really going to kill him. He starts out at level 3, that's like 7 levels away from promotion. Once you promote this guy into a hero, he just pretty much stays good for the rest of the game. And then here's the thing, right? I'm going to rank Board above Barst, because remember, this is the real first, like, oh, this is because it's an Iron Man thing. This is because it's an Iron Man, right? Okay. So let's say, oh, Caeda gets killed. Let's say Caeda gets killed. Board starts out with C hammers, and there's a general, and there's a couple generals on a map you want to kill. He has C axes, so he can use the hammer, he can immediately use the forged hammer, right? So, because of the way an Iron Man works, if a unit dies, you can immediately bring, you know, Board back, and he'll be great. He'll be great to kill armored units with the hammer. So he has immediate utility compared to, like, say you bench Barst. You shouldn't bench Barst, but let's say Barst dies or you benched him. You can immediately bring Board into the field and he'll have immediate use. Compared to if a unit dies and then you deploy Barst, he does not have C axes at base. So, you know, he would not have immediate, immediate usability. Like, let's say 15 chapters pass without using Board, right? You can still use them. If 15 chapters pass without using Barst, it might get a little bit questionable. And then in memes, there's Cord. EX is pretty much... he does have a good speed growth at like 40% or something, but if his growths go wrong, he's pretty much done. Like, I tried to use him in my Iron Man, but his first level up was bad, so I was like, yeah, whatever. And then I just benched him for the rest of it. I put him in memes because there's a meme you can do where he has a higher personal magic growth than other units. It's like an extra 10%, so as a Dark Mage, you'd have a 30% magic growth compared to other non-magical units, so you can do that as a meme if you want to. And then Niche is Caster, pretty much the same reason as Gordon. He's like a better Gordon, but he doesn't have the Chapter 1 availability, so it's whatever. He can use the Steel Bow right away like Gordon can, and he pretty much just chips the pirates and everything else that Gordon does. He has an extra movement and a bit better stats, but Gordon is available for the first chapter and is likely to be more helpful overall. When he promotes, he does turn into a Horseman, but those don't have very good promotion gains, assuming you don't reclass him. But Sniper gets like 5 speed upon promotion, so if you do the level 20 meme with Gordon in Chapter 1 and then promote him, he's probably going to double some shit, honestly. 10% speed growth memes. Gets doubled just by wielding the Steel Axe in his joining chapter. Memes. Worse than Cord, honestly. And then Niche. Julian, just because he steals thing, you can have Marth with the Fire Emblem and some door keys do the same thing, but if you don't want to have if you want to have Marth go straight towards the objective, you can just have Julian do it. Never use him for combat, but there's a lot of good treasure in this game. Like, you definitely want to get all the Booleans, but he's never going to be killing a lot of things, but, you should always deploy Julian when there's treasure. Warp Staff, Sea Staves, probably going to be your highest ranking staff unit by the end of the game, assuming she doesn't die. Yeah, so use Lena 100%. She can use the Warp Staff, so if you don't think you're well equipped for a chapter, just skip it. Again, it's an Iron Man, so I encourage you don't do it too much, because that would kind of make the challenge unsatisfying, but even then she can use the Men's Staff right away, compared to Reyes, who for some reason, if you don't get him to D-Staves, can't. Yeah, so you pretty much just want to deploy Lena, honestly. And then because she has C-Staves, and she's growing it for like pretty much the entire game, because you get her in Chapter 3, she'll likely be your first unit to A-Staves. So you can just use it for a lot of fun stuff. And it is worth bringing up the glitch, the invisible choke point glitch, where you can use Lena and another Warper to like... I'll do a top right link in the description for the glitch to show it off to like a speedrun or something, but you can pretty much have a unit be in 2 places at once. And I don't know, if you're playing an Iron Man, you might want to use that glitch. Navarre, he's Niche. Like, his personal speed is very low because they made him fast just by being in the Myrmidon. starting class, so if you reclass him to a Cavalier, he's bad, but he does start out with C swords, so if you want him to use an Armor Slayer, you know, that's fine. But he's still a Sword Master in Fire Emblem 11, where a lot of units, or like a Myrmidon, where a lot of units use lances, and he doesn't even double anything. He does come with the Killing Edge, but Ogmite can use it too. Like, he's, like, if you need an Armor Slayer and you want a unit that can kind of have speed growth, because his speed growth is, like, kind of high. Let me check real quick. Let's see, Navarre. Yeah, like, speed 50, that's pretty high in terms of Shadow Dragon growths, you know. Cain has the same growth, and I said his growths were good, like 30% strength. Cain has 35%. So pretty much, he's better Cain, honestly, because you can just immediately reclass him into a into a Cavalier. He'll get doubled by everything, because as I said, his personal speed is very low. But I don't put him in the same tier, because hammers are way better than armor slayers because of weapon triangle, and they can promote and get that hero thing where they can use swords and axes. But Navarre is alright if you want to destroy an armor slaying guy. Merrick, okay, here's the thing about Merrick. Everyone clowns on... I'll put him at the top of the niche. Everyone clowns on, you know, Violent and, like, the crappy cabs you get for getting, you know, one round in a base because their speed is low. Merrick has the same speed tier of 6, you know, the same Cain had. And he doesn't have high movement, so, like, if a Cavalier or Horseman is coming for Cain, you know, at least they can, at least they can run away. You know, have equal movement. If a high movement, like a Draco Knight comes for Merrick, well, one Merrick can kill it with Excalibur, so it's not a total downside, but it's just an example. But, yeah, he's just kind of bad in Shadow Dragon, honestly. I don't think mages are very good. You know, usually when you get the first mage in a Fire Emblem game, it's like, oh, wow, they're so fast, and they double the Armor Knights. That's not the case. He won't be doubling anything unless you level him up a lot. I only put him in niche because he can use the Excalibur, which other male units can't use until B. But guess what? All the other male mages you get in this game already have B tomes, unless you reclass another unit to a mage, so it doesn't really matter, honestly. It is effective against flyers, but you don't face too many flyers until Macedon. There's like the chapter, 2 chapters after you get the Wolf Guard, where you face like a Draco Knight. It's good for that, but assuming Castor and Gordon are still alive. There's that, and you can't really deploy him like 15 chapters after not using him if someone else dies, because his bases are quite trash. Yeah. And, like, to one-shot things with the Excalibur, he relies on crits, which is like a 30% chance with the Excalibur, but... So if you deploy him like 15 chapters after not using him, you just have to pray he gets a crit, and if he doesn't, well, tough shit. I'm gonna say good to deploy if another unit dies. Now, here's the thing about Mathis and the other Cavs, Roche and Violent, who I'm pretty much just gonna put in the same position as him. He does start out with D-Lances, like Abel does, but he's slower than Abel, so he gets doubled, which is why, you know, tier below. But what you can do is you can just deploy him and have him passively throw lances, and he'll eventually just get C. I think it's after 15, I want to say 15 javelin throws where he'll get C lances, and then it doesn't even matter if he gets doubled because he can just player phase one-shot them, or like, he doesn't get one shot, he gets one rounded, right? So even if he gets doubled, he can have an enemy Cavalier run into him, and then he'll Rider's Bane in retaliation, and then they'll die. And out of the Scrub Cavaliers, I'm gonna rank him the highest because his growths are all the best. Like, I want to say, he does have 90% HP, so that's just inherently good for tanking. 40% strength, which is actually higher than Cain. Defense 30 compared to like Violence 10. Speed 20 compared to like Roche's 10% speed growth. So out of all the Cavaliers, right, he is better than Cain. Like, that's just, even in a normal run, he's better than Cain because of the D-Lances thing. So there's that going for him. And then, like, out of Roche and Violent and the other scrub D-Lance Cavs, he'll just turn out the best if you train him, like, statistically. So there's that going for him. So, like, say Abel dies. Oh no, Abel died. You can just deploy Mathis, get him up to... You can just, like, surround an archer or, like, boss abuse, because, you know, you're not going fast, you are playing an Iron Man, so, like, the goal isn't to get A rank, so you can just, like, throw him at a one-range boss, even in his join chapter, get him up to C-Lances. Like, a lot of bosses in this game only have one range, so even, like, late game, like, I did this with Violent in my Iron Man, I just surrounded a sniper, hit him with a little bit of lances, got him up to almost C. I say almost C because, like, next chapter he got crit, 2% crit by an Armor Knight. Just to show how important luck is in an Iron Man, I guess. And, you know, so that just works out for him, and I'm just going to skip ahead. Violent has a 40% speed growth, so he'll turn out better than Rocher. And Rocher has a 10% speed growth, so if you raise them all, Rocher will definitely turn out the worst. But they pretty much all do the same thing, and I say effective weapons are so important because 90% of the enemies in Shadow Dragon are Cavaliers, so you can just forge a Rider's Bane, boop, one shot, boop, one shot, boop, one shot. So they can all be good if you train them. Again, I put Abel in immediate utility because he is in the prologue, the first 3 chapters. I count the prologue as, like, before you unlock battle preps. So if you train them all, Abel will be the best one. But if Abel dies, you can just, you know, deploy these guys if you want to. Immediate utility. Harden, I'd say 100% deploy Harden while you have him because he starts out with the B Lances, which is the same as Jagen. But he can't turn into a Juggernaut right away. He has to promote first. And he does have a bit of a, you know, tanking problem, I will say. He does start out with pretty good speed, so he won't get doubled when he joins. So that's good. You know, in Shadow Dragon, when a lot of units join, they just get doubled and died right away. But he has 8 speed, one more than Abel. And then he has a 55% speed growth. That's like one of the highest in the game. Caeda does have the highest in the game, but like Harden... Shadow Dragon growths are usually across the board not as good as other games. So Harden having that is pretty nice. He only has a 50% HP growth and a 20% defense growth, so he'll never be the tankiest guy, but if you use him right, he'll just be one-shotting everything anyway. And he does start at level 6, so relatively closer to promotion than the other Cavaliers. And like I said, B-Lances, so he has silvers and effectives right away. So honestly, Harden is a lot better than a lot of the units you get in this game. Wolf, Sedgar are the best units for the Iron Man context, because you can train them to be generals. If you don't know, like, they have like over 100% growth in defense, like 200% HP, about that, or like the potential to get 2 HP level ups and 1 level up when you reclass them to general. Because they have absurdly high growths, and then general pushes that even further. So in an Iron Man context, these two are probably going to be your MVPs, and it's another reason why Shadow Dragon is so Iron Man friendly. Because these two exist, and you can just reclass them to general, and that makes a lot of enemy phases relatively risk-free if you need to lure out an enemy. You do need to train them, though, because they will get doubled at base at general by some enemies. They're not too tanky, like... But once you get them a couple level ups, they're good to go. So, like... And, like, I say, like, a couple level ups, they're good to go, then why aren't they in, you know, Mathis tier? Because their growths are so absurdly good that you honestly should. And then there's Wendell. He starts out at D staves, but he comes with a barrier staff, so you can just spam it, because barrier doesn't really matter too much. Mages aren't that strong in this game, and their accuracy is quite low in general. So you can just, you know, barrier, C staves. Oh, and he has, I think, 14 speed at base. And this is why Merrick, like, if Merrick was the only one who could use the Excalibur, then he might be, like, here. But no, he can use it at base too, because he has B-tomes, and he's actually fast. He can reclass into a Draco Knight if you want him to make use of that funny speed. Like, he probably has one of the best base speed tiers in the game. You know, if you give him the Excalibur, he will actually double some enemies, like Armor Knights and maybe Archers. For the first few chapters, at least, where you get him. And that's pretty good. You know, that's amazing in a game where 90% of the units are, like, Massillon. So that's fun. Rickard, same thing as Julian, but Julian is better, pretty much. Athena, she's the first Gaiden unit, so you get her if other units die. Which is fine. I'm not gonna penalize her for that. I mean, she's pretty much just better than these guys, right? Because she starts out at level 10, so you can just promote her right away, or as soon as you get the first seal. And she still has 2 swords, I think, and that'll bump her up to B. So you can just bench her until you get the first Master Seal, which you should use on Caeda if she's still alive, by the way. But, yeah, I mean, she's pretty niche. That's her niche use. She starts promotion, and then you can turn into a Sword Master right away. And then reclass her to Pegasus Knight if you want to, or Wyvern Rider, in that case. Bantu memes, I'm pretty sure on Hard 5, he gets one-rounded by pretty much everything, and he has the worst growths in, like, the entire franchise, so that's obviously bad. Alright. Then there's Caesar. I'm gonna put him at the top of memes, because he does have, like, D and swords, but the next chapter is, like, one of the only chapters for the rest of the game with axe enemies, so you could train him if you really wanted to, but don't bother if you're trying to take it seriously, because his growths aren't the best. Like, they're a bit better than Ogma's, but Ogma's weren't already very good. He starts at a very low base level, and honestly not really worth it. Now, he does have the same thing with Cord, funnily enough, so I guess we'll put him below Cord, since Cord comes earlier, where his magic growth is a bit better by everyone else's by 10%. So I did this in my Iron Man, and it was very funny, where you make him a Dark Mage, and just go from there. Rad, again, memes, pretty much, D-Swords, I think dies in one hit. Yeah, I think they nerfed his growths from Fire Emblem 1, because in Fire Emblem 1 he had some good growths. Let's see. Fire Emblem 11 Rad. Fire Emblem 1 Rad. Okay, so yeah, they did nerf him. In Fire Emblem 1 he had a 50% strength growth compared to 40% in this, a 90% HP growth compared to 80% in this, a 70% speed growth. He had a 70% speed growth. And in this he has a 45. So Rad is pretty much memes. Bad bases, bad growths. He used to be an S archetype, but now he isn't even that. So he's so bad, don't even use him. You can reclass Roger into a mercenary and he'll double things, and Caesar won't. So that's why I'm putting him in bad. Like, these units are so bad, why even bother? These units are bad, but you can make use out of them if you really want to. Like, if Kane gets that one level up, you can kinda train him from there. Doga can kinda be a hunter with high speed growth, and the same thing with Roger. If you reclass him to a mercenary in the next pirate chapter, he'll double all the pirates. And he has a pretty good growth as a mercenary. Like, as a mercenary, let's see, mercenary. He has like a 55% strength growth and like a 30% speed growth, 80% luck. So 55 strength is pretty good, honestly. And base 15 speed. Like, I was talking about Barst having some personal bases. This man has some personal bases. However, his HP will be 20 with a 70% growth and a 5 defense luck growth with base 7 defense as a mercenary. So he probably will get one shot by some things. So if you train Roger, you have to baby him a lot, which is the thing. But yeah. Immediate utility, I'm going to put George at the bottom below these guys, because he does have B and bows, like B and a half, so he can get to Parthia very quickly, but I wouldn't say bows in general are the best. Like, he can double some of the pirates on his join map if they roll down in speed with his silver bow, which is nice. But you don't, after this point, you don't fight two enemies, like, too many flying enemies. Like, there's the next chapter where there's a squad of wyverns, yes, that's good. Then the next chapter where there are 2 Pegasus Knights, you don't need George for that, but he can one-shot them too with the silver bow, which is nice. And then after that, you don't really fight too many flyers until the Macedon arc. And besides effective damage, George isn't really the best. But, you know, he's fine. He's got fine base, and his growths are bad, and he'll always be able to do good damage with the Parthia, because, you know, the Parthia is so strong that his strength doesn't really matter too much. But yeah, so like you can have him deal like maybe half or a little half of a regular enemy's damage health with the Parthia once he gets it, and that'll be fine. Maria, pretty much same thing as Riz, but Riz is more available, so I'm ranking her below Riz. Like D&a-half staves when she joins, so like a couple heals later, and then she gets C staves, and then that gets her warp. So that's good. 100% deploy them. For Minerva, it's a bit hard, because she does have B axes, so she can use the pole axe. But the thing is, by the time she joins, I think the pole axes are like 6 chapters away, so her real utility is with hammers. But if you've used Barst, but she can fly, and she won't get doubled at base, which is nice. I'm gonna say how about the bottom of 100% deploy them? Because she does have B axes, her strength is fine, her growths are a bit meh. Like, if you use Minerva, it's best to invest in her. Like, I think if you give her the Speed Wing at the end of her join chapter, she can double things, but, you know, you might want to give that Speed Wing to somebody else. It's not, you know, Minerva isn't entitled to that. But she can use the Halicture right away, which is very good for chipping enemies. You know, she won't double them with her base speed, but she can chip them down to, like, maybe half HP, then someone else finishes off. Or maybe she finishes them off with the Halicture. But yeah, it's the same thing where, like, actually, yeah. Because let's say Barst dies or someone dies and you don't use Minerva, she can come back immediately, use the Halicture, use the hammer, And then in chapter like 16 or 17, whatever Martha's castle map is, you can buy poleaxes. That makes her immediately good. She just has to wait for them. Poleaxes are the axes that are effective against horses, so that will immediately boost her usability. And because she's a flyer, Board and Barst can never reclass into a flyer. In the Gra map, she can just fly down with Caeda right away, smack those 2 armor knights, and then just go get the silver card very, very easily. So yeah, honestly, Minerva's very good. Her stats do leave a little bit to be desired. Like, if she had a bit more speed, she'd be, like, up here, but she doesn't. So there's that. Lind memes, she can Aura Bomb Fingerings right away, which is better than these guys, but, like, who cares? Chapter after you get her, there are, like, 3 older men that can use the Excalibur. So there's that. So there's that. And then there's Jake the Ballistician. I'm going to put him at the top of immediate utility because he can use, like, the Thunderbolt once you get back, which is super effective against Ballisticians, which is nice to get rid of them because they're really annoying. I'm putting them in at the top of 100% utility, right? Because there are some maps where you maybe don't want to deploy them, right? Like, say, they have very low movement. So, like, if an enemy is chasing you and they can't escape them, it's, you know, like the Merrick thing, then they're pretty much done. Like that Macedon map where it's just a big empty field, if a Wyvern reinforces and goes after him and he can't one-shot it with the Aerospate for whatever reason, or he misses with the Aerospate, he's done, right? And then there's that map where you fight Camus, where he's very good for dealing with the Ballista, but there are reinforcements that come from the bottom forts and the left forts, and if he is in range of those, he's done. So there are some maps where you maybe want to go in a hurry. Like, I deployed him on that map in my Iron Man, and I had to use Warp Staves on him just to, you know, keep him out of danger. So, you know, there's that. So he's good on a lot of maps, especially the McAllis one, where you can just snipe his fort from your little bottom area, but there are definitely some maps where deploying the Ballista Boys is a bit risky. Midia, okay, here's the thing about Midia. I'm going to rank her better than Minerva, honestly better than Harden. I'm going to put her below Jagen. Because while Harden has been contributing, maybe because of availability, I'll rate her below Harden, but definitely above Minerva. Because she can immediately reclass into Draco like Jagen can, unlike Harden. Harden cannot, like, Harden doesn't start out promoted. So she can immediately reclass into Draco Knight. And use the Rider's Bane. And you know what? She has good availability. She joins around the mid-game, like chapter 10. You still have like 14 chapters left, so you can use her for all of that. She has a pretty good speed growth. I think as a Wyvern Knight, it's about 50%. She can get doubled if she uses the Rider's Bane by some enemies, or even the Javelin. Like, if she doesn't level speed very much in the bridge map, and she's holding the Javelin, and then another Javelin enemy throws a Javelin at her, she will get doubled. But if you're smart with her, she will provide amazing use. Again, immediate Draco Knight, Sea Lances. And I'm putting her above Minerva, because although Minerva can use poleaxes don't come until, again, the Marth Homeland chapter. So she can just be effective right away, while Minerva is stuck with hammers for her effective weapons for a while, and she can't quite make as much use of hammers, because there aren't as many armors as there are Cavaliers, and odds are other units can double Generals and Armor Knights by this point anyway. Like, I don't know, if you've raised Dino with the speed growth, like, I don't know, Abel, he's probably doubled them and dealing decent damage to them anyway. And again, here's another one where the context of this being an Iron Man really helps improve their placement. This is Dolph. Dolph is an Armor Knight with Sea Lances. So, let's say in some tragedy, Caeda dies. Let's say I watched Fuzzbuzz's Iron Man the other day. Her Shadow Dragon Iron Man. She died at the McAllis chapter. All of her units died. Let's say she survived that chapter and Dolph wasn't dead, because I think she got Dolph killed in his join chapter. Let's say for some reason there's some tragedy, ambush spawns happen. Oh my god, all my Sea Lance units got ambushed and died. Dolph has Sea Lances. He obviously, if you deploy him like 10 chapters after you get him, he'll obviously get one rounded, but he won't get one shot per se, because he does have Knight defense, base Knight defense. I think like 12 defense. And his growths aren't too bad either. Like, in terms of Knights and stuff, like, Doga only has like a low % chance to you know, get that when he levels up. Like, Roger only has, like, a personal 5 defense growth. Let's check Dolph's. I'm going to check Dolph's growth real quick. He has, like, 45, so almost 50, right? And a 70% HP. So if you do theoretically use Dolph for his Sea-Lance utility, promote him, he'll be a pretty good general compared to, like, Doga. Like, let's see. I'm just going to check Roger's growths for a comparison while he's a knight. Like, Roger only has a 30% growth as a knight, okay? So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. And he can just use the Rider's Bane, and 1 rank away from silver. If you promote him, so like, this is what I mean by good to deploy if another unit dies. Let's say, oh no, Medea got doubled. Well, Dolph's there, and he has Sea Lances. And, you know, in no other tier list would you say that, you know, fucking Dolph is better than Navarre, Ogma, Merrick. But this is an Iron Man, and Merrick is going to get doubled and die at base without effective weapons, unless you're using Excalibur against Flyer, which, you know, everyone else can do, units who are actually fast. Like, I'm not saying he's better than Caeda, but if Caeda dies, why not deploy Dolph? And then there's memed here. This guy, I'll put him above Caesar. Actually, no, I'll put him above Red. He has D lances, so you can do the thing where, like, you throw javelins until they're at sea. But these guys actually have high movement, so they can, like, take advantage of that more often. Dolph is so bad when you join him, his growths are bad. I did meme once in a hard 5 run where I had him kill Garneth by making him a Dark Mage, but don't do that in an Iron Man. Like, Caesar's pushing it because he has his high magic growths. Don't do that with Mastodon. Like, 35% strength, he's pretty much the worst Dolph. 20 HP compared to Dolph's 22. Like, 12 defense compared to Dolph's 13. Like, he has less of an opportunity to get up to Sea Lances compared to these guys. Also, his availability is much worse. Like, by the time you get Mastodon and you, like, chuck to Javelins and use the Rider's Bane with these guys, they probably have maybe even B Lances. So availability is working against him too here. Like, Dolph, like, if Harden dies, you're not going to fucking deploy Mastodon, right? That's just not going to happen. Here's another unit that's, kind of helped. I'm going to put him at the bottom, though, because archers. But here's the thing. He starts at level 8, right? He starts at level 8. And there are 2 clerics on his map, and you can kill both of them to get him to level 9. And then he's pretty much at promotion, and then he'll have, like, B.5 bows if you used him to kill the clerics like George does, and now you essentially have a second George. He can't quite use the Parthia, but almost. And if you promote him, he'll be better than George, because, like, Tomas is, like, I want to say, let's see. It's either 5 or 7 base speed for Thomas. Oh, Fire Emblem 7 Tomas. Okay, so 5 base speed, but he does have a 50% speed growth. So if you level him up twice and then promote him, he'll have, like, on average, 6 by the time you promote him, then 11. Oh, Fire Emblem 11 George. Compared to George's, so yeah, so he'll pretty much be a mini George. With, like, better strength, because promotion gains. Because they both have base 7 strength. So yeah, by sheer virtue of promotion. And, like, if he was a level 1 archer, he'd be in memes, but he's level 8. So he's fairly close to promotion. This is a chapter where you get 2 Master Seals that you should probably use on other units. But, like, if George dies, and you, like, and if you do my suggestion where you just get him to level 10 easily in his join chapter, you can deploy him, promote him, and then boom, you're good for you have an archer, you have a sniper for the Macedon arc, so you can kill Dracos. That's pretty much at Parthia rank. So if George dies, like, good to deploy if another unit dies. This is pretty vague, because, like, with Dolph, it could be talking about any of these Sea Lance guys. With good if another unit dies, I'm specifically talking about George here, because he's so close to promotion, and his growths aren't too terrible. Compared to, like, these guys, where, like, Gordon, maybe he's, like, level 3 by the end of the prologue, and then you never used him again. Like, you know, you're not going to get a George replacement that quickly. So those are my thoughts on that. This dude, I'm just going to put him below Lena because of availability, but Excalibur at base, that's a great tome. Warp at base, I don't really need to elaborate on this. Another guy stealing Merrick's preferred weapon, whoopsie doopsie, poopsie whoopsie. Horus, let me check what he has again real quick, because I never I'm so good at this game, I never even get the guide units. Holla at your boy, holla at your boy. Alright. Horus, let's see. Shit, alright. He's like a general, right? Okay, so B Lances, okay, yeah, he's pretty much better Dolph. So like everything I said about Dolph applies to this guy. He has slightly worse availability by like one chapter, but it's one chapter, so who cares? And he starts out as a general compared to Dolph, who starts out as a knight. But odds are, if you're good at the game, you're probably not gonna get Horus. So there's that. He's actually a lot better at tanking than Dolph. He probably won't get one-rounded by a lot of things. But, he's pretty much just better Dolph, honestly. But you're probably not gonna get him. Beck, everything I said about Jake applies to him, except he has worse availability. Okay, so I'm gonna put Astram at, like, below Merrick and Niche, because his bases are terrible, his growths aren't very good. He does have, his thing is that he has B swords, right? So he's like George, where he's almost at Mercurius, but not quite. You can use the Armor Slayer, but, like, he can use the Worm Slayer, which is nice. But here's the thing, he gets one-rounded by Fire Dragons at base, and you, depending on if you have a Forged Worm Slayer or not, you're not going to one-shot them. So, yeah, like, Astram, level 1 hero, 20% speed, like, his bases aren't bad, like, he has 14 speed, but, like, only 8 strength. Guess what? Barst had that in fucking Chapter 2, so good job there, Astram, strongest man in Arcanea, my ass. So there is that. Not very good. Not very good, I'm gonna say. He has his B sword niche like Worm Slayer, Mercurius, pretty close to Mercurius if you want that, but whatever. Okay. Okay, so I'm just gonna go out of order and rank all of the Pegasus sisters at once. Let's see. I'm just gonna rank all of the Pegasus sisters at once compared to how good they are. I'm gonna put them above Abel despite the availability. So they all start off with at least C Lances, right? So they can all use the Rider's Bane. Okay, that's been established, but here's the thing. They can also use the Triangle Attack. Now, in the normal playthrough, Triangle Attack is memes, right? You know, you use it, haha, whatever, Triangle Attack. In Iron Man, where you have a guaranteed 100% accuracy move that always crits, who cares about the setup, right? In my Shadow Dragon Hard 5 Iron Man, I used it to defeat Camus, who's a very hard boss. He has a lot of defense, a lot of HP, and a 1-2 range weapon. You can just give one of them a Forged Rider's Bane, it doesn't matter which one, you can train any of them, although Paula's probably the best. And just crit an enemy for free. Like, in a do-or-die situation, right? In a do-or-die, let's say, Nagi is delivering the final blow to Medius or something. Nagi misses. Oh, you missed your entire Iron Man set. These guys can't triangle attack Medius, but I'm just bringing up an example where misses would be heartbreaking. With a little bit of setup, you can just triangle attack and crit, and the problem goes away. You know, pretty much any boss that's on a fort, triangle attack him. The problem just goes away. Feel the calmness wash over you. So I'm putting them, like, I'm not saying 100% deploy them, because I don't know, maybe Caeda with a max forged wing spear, you can just do it without the setup. But if you need, in an Iron Man, if you need an enemy to die, just slap one of these 8-move, free movement ladies with a Rider's Bane. You don't even need to promote him. Promote him as a bonus to get him to Draco Knight if you really want to. I promoted Est in my Iron Man, so that was pretty fun. But you only really need to promote one of them, and the rest of them can just stay Pegasus Knights, and you just crit an enemy and feel the calmness wash over you. It's so calming. It's so calming. Oh, do you feel it? And then Aaron, I'm just going to rank him low because of availability, but he can reclass into a Draco, like B Lances, he can use Silver Lances, so like probably rank him above George, since that's more valuable than like bows will ever be, but like Midia did that a couple chapters ago. Like you get him right before you hit pole axes, so Minerva's probably doing that by now, assuming she's not dead. Caeda has been doing that forever. Like deploy Aaron if like he does have great utility out of the box. So, like, I know if you're leveling up somebody and they're not meeting your standards, you can deploy them, but, like, Yeah, I'm putting him, like, near the bottom of immediate utility. It's like George, where he does technically have great utility, but, like, say Shadow Dragon has, like, 12 deployment slots in a chapter, I forget. So that's, like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then, like, Abel as the 12th, assuming you're not doing the triangle attack. Like, assuming these guys aren't dead, Aaron is there. Like, he does have great immediate utility, you know, his bases are whatever. And then, there's, let's see. This guy, he's pretty much better Astram, but he has, like, B axes, I think. Actually, let me check that real quick. I want to double check. I want to double check that because I could be wrong. Samson. Okay. So B axes, one chapter away from the pole axes. That's fine. He does have better speed than Aaron. I'm actually just going to check Aaron's thing really quick. Oh, FE11. Aaron. Okay, so like 11 speed, not the best. 8 strength, that's kind of yikes compared to Samson's 10. So like Astram strength. Availability is not the best. Actually, he has A-lances. Okay, so he can use the Gradivis at base. My mistake. So this guy can use the Gradivis at base. So actually, yeah, that actually does make him pretty good. But availability is still going to keep him down for me. And then where'd I put Samson? Okay. And then, like, this dude can use pole axes, but he doesn't fly. But still, I'd say better than what George provides despite availability. Zane. So Wolf has a million growths. And has good bases. Okay, so once Zane transforms, he can also use their preferred weapon. So, say Caeda has a wing spear, you have 2 forged wing spears for whatever reason. Hello, my name's Zane, I'm Caeda 2. So Zane is pretty much as good as your best unit is. Zane is pretty much as good as your best unit is. So I'm gonna say... I don't know if I 100% deploy him... Actually, yeah. Zane is pretty much your best unit. As good as your best unit, at least. So I'm just going to put him at the bottom of 100% deploy them, because he's pretty much as good as one of these guys if you've had them all the way trained up. So that's great. Etzel, he does start out with D staves, which is fun. B tomes, like these guys, and he is promoted actually, so... but I would say Excalibur is not as good as... I'll put him above Riz and Maria since he's already promoted. So, like, you know, if Lena gets sniped or something, Etzel can use the barrier staff a few times and he's up there. Tiki. Niche, effective against dragons. I'd say that's more of an effective thing than Excalibur will ever be, because in the endgame you fight a lot of dragons, there are a lot of scary dragons, she's effective against them. Honestly, Killer, though, so you can get Nagi, so you have an easier time against Medius. That's just my personal opinion. Yeah, there's that. And then there's Lorenz. I think he's pretty good, honestly, because you can reclass him to a horseman and he has B-bows, and you get him right before the Macedon arc. So, I'll put him above Thomas, and, well, yeah, because you don't need to promote him, right? B-bows is fine. And you know what? You can just reclass him to horseman, he has B-bows then. Then you can just silver bow some Draco Knights in the Macedon arc. He doesn't one-shot them because his base strength is quite low, but if you give him a forged bow, or just have him chip so another unit can finish off, that's pretty easy. Ranked above Tomas, not because of availability. Actually, I'd say immediate utility, because maybe at the bottom, the very, very bottom of immediate utility, because, like, you shouldn't deploy him per se. It's tricky with Lorenz, because he comes right before the Macedon arc. As I said, silver bow, good chip damage, but, like, I don't want to say I don't want to rank him above the C-Lance boys, is the thing. Or the D-Lance boys, because by the time you get him, and assuming they're still alive, they have Rider's Bane, which is cool. And that's useful in every chapter compared to just 2 Macedon chapters, and then you probably just bench him afterwards. You know, I'll put him... Okay, you know what? Fuck it. Fuck this. Okay. Nope. I want that. What color was that row? Whatever. I'm just gonna... Okay. You know what? Good in the Macedon arc, and then bench him. Okay. So there, that's been solved. Ymir, he has like B axes, but his availability is poop. Like, you get him like right as you fight Garneth, I think. So are a bit after you fight Garnef, and then you just fight a bunch of dragons at that point, and then in Endgame, there are some Cavaliers, but like, I said assuming no warp skipping, but there's usually an exception for Endgame unless they're like really hardcore. So he's just, I mean, he can use the poleaxe against like Endgame Paladins, assuming you don't warp skip, but like, whatever, I guess they'll put him at the bottom of niche. And then Elise, immediate utility. So in an Iron Man, you probably have some dead units. This lady revives dead units. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Like, I'm not saying 100% deploy them because, I don't know, maybe you're a god at the game and only you ever got scrubs killed and none of the good units. Well, her immediate utility, let's say Jake died. Then she's essentially Jake because she can bring Jake back to life. Say that thing I said came true earlier where Jake got ambushed and then he got bopped instantly. Well, guess what? Now you have Jake back for Endgame who can Thunderbolt a lot of the annoying Ballista in Endgame. So that's good. That's, like, her availability doesn't matter because she brings back a unit that probably had better availability than her anyway. So there's that. Nagi, well, it's not even 100% deploy them, right? Because they are deployed in Endgame. Nagi's very good for, like, one-rounding the final boss, or not one-rounding, dealing significant chip to the final boss, which is something which is more than Board will ever contribute throughout his whole run, because Armor Knights aren't that threatening, but he is good at one-shotting the ones that are. And then Goto, he can use the Warp Staff, which can let you warp a Medius Killer in range, so he and not, I'd say he's like, I'll put him at the, I'll put him above George. Because Warp, Nagi is just so good at dealing with the final boss, it's crazy. Like, she got a crit in one round in my thing. Okay, so that's my Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon tier list. Let's do one more run through to see if I want to rearrange everyone. Wolf, Sedgar, Caeda, Jagen, Hardin, Wendell, Midia, Lena, Boa, Minerva. Minerva is not higher because of the good X is not being available until a bit later. Zane, Elise, Jake, Beck, Paula, well, the Triangle Attack Trio, Abel, Board, Nagi, Barst, maybe below Barst. Aaron, Samson, Goto, George, good in the Mastodon arc, good to deploy if another unit dies. You know, because, you know, Lance rank and all that. So Horus, Dolph, Mathis. Dolph has worse availability than these guys, but if you didn't train them up at all, see Lance as compared to Deed, then Etzel, Riz, Maria, Thomas, Tiki, Merrick, Astram, Athena, Navarre, Ogma, Gordon, Castor, Julian, Rickard, this guy, let's see, Kane, and Doga, and Roger, and then meme tier, Lind, Cord, Caesar, Massillon, Rad, Daros, and Bantu, and then Norn and Frey. They aren't even in the game. Alright, so that's my tier list. Let me know what you think on it. If you want to comment in the description or something. These are just my thoughts, obviously, after my experience with Iron Manning a few games. Iron Manning this game twice, because I did one on Hard 3 and then one on Hard 5, which I've posted on this YouTube channel. If you want to check that out. It's like a playlist on my channel page. And yeah, that's that. So, again, I want to emphasize this. And if you were playing very optimally, Dolph would be like at the bottom of the bottom. But you're not playing optimally. You're playing an Iron Man where Violent is going to get hit by a 2% crit, and you're going to have to deploy somebody else. So that said, because, you know, RNG doesn't always go your way. I know even Caeda, you know, if she can miss like a 99%, then get 1% crit, boom, dead. So in an Iron Man, there's a lot of factors, and I tried to rank these units based on those factors. This is my first time trying to make like professional tier list. I've made tier lists where like I rank them based on how much I like them. This isn't that kind of tier list. So let me know what you think. Is there anything I could do to improve in the future? I don't know. But with that said, have a nice rest of your day. I'm going to probably do my 700-776 subscriber special later today. Bye-bye.